How about
I
you?
love it. Oh my gosh, life is good. Completely
Yeah.
changed my life around. Oh yeah. Oh
But
yeah.
is that
Completely.
like something in the last few months, in the last
Oh
year?
yeah. Oh no. Really it started in Virginia and
Oh,
I was like, you got two choices. I mean, if you are what you talk about, you've got some more layers that need to be pulled back. I think
yeah.
we'll be layering back for till we die, right?
100%.
Yeah. So I had some hard decisions to make, came home, broke up with my boyfriend of 11 years. And
Wow.
I told you, got rid of, oh gosh, at this point, probably 75% of my stuff, which, has created more energy for other things, more space
Yeah.
for other. Um, so yeah, we're getting, if you remember when we were in Virginia, um, had talked about, I've got to get that book done. I got to get that book done. So we're gearing up, girl.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah,
my gosh.
started working. Yeah, started working on myself. I used to be 300 and something pounds. So I've definitely not where I used to be, but when we want to get to that best version, I just got back from Women in Business.
Mm.
And I just kind of had an aha there too, to go, there's a lot of room to improve. So yeah,
Yeah. I love that. I'm so bummed I couldn't be at Women in Business. It's always so good.
it was good. It was really good. Emily just always goes above and beyond. So it was better than good. It was outstanding as
Yeah.
usual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting where you're talking about there's just more to go. Like I've had that realization probably in the last year because with, CrossFit and working out, I gotten to a point that was comfortable and better than I'd been since I'd had kids. So I settled there thinking that's as good as it gets mentally and physically, when all I had to do was push a little farther, a little harder, and then I would become the absolute best version of myself that I've always wanted to be. But I was stopping myself before I got there and settling because I was thinking in my head, limiting belief, it's as good as it gets. And it's not as good as it gets. Don't quit before the 100% miracle. Don't settle for 80%.
Right. Isn't that the truth? For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've realized that it was one of those ahas I wish I had told myself just like 5 years ago, like, dude, you're so close. Keep going.
What do they call that? 3 foot from gold.
Is that
When
is
you
that the thing?
That's the thing, and that's a true story. It was I think it's in Think and Grow Rich, and it was a guy who had bought all this equipment, and he finally just said, you know what, I'm not going to get it. And a junkyard guy bought his stuff, and he hired someone that had a lot more knowledge of how all that worked, and he went busy mining. And the guy that quit, that sold all this stuff, he was just 3 foot from gold. And I
Oh,
think that is so true for
oh,
most of us. As you were just saying, if we'll just go that extra, and I think Andy Frisella said this.
yeah.
What else is possible?
Yeah.
I think he said it. I don't know. I'm in so much self-development.
Oh, it's
Um,
amazing.
but it's still a great statement, is what else is possible for you? What
Yeah.
else you got? And how much more can you dig?
How much more can you do? Yeah. Even David Goggins, when I was at the Arte thing, he said that. He's like, after my first book, as hard as I was, I got complacent. Like the money was flowing in, the accolades, like everything. And for him, complacement is still like up here compared to your regular person.
Right?
But even he is like, it is a continual work in progress because there's always more to go. And you can, if you settle when things are good and there's some success and some money, you're stopping short of like the full potential. And that's really real for me right now as well.
Right. Well, I just was sitting here as you were talking. I was like, man, we just jumped right into it. I mean, we're like heavy achievers. I was like, gosh, I just was like, woo, change. And it's so good. And um, I'm sure you probably have a format, and
No,
we're just go,
I don't.
we're
This
just
is what I
going.
do because I think this is, it's not a formal I interview you kind of thing. It's us chatting about the things that we have in common, which happen to be pretty cool stuff that a lot of the world also has in common or is learning from.
Right. I love that. Um, I just think, why not be the best version of ourselves, right? And it's hard sometimes. And I don't even like to use that word hard, because I think whatever you speak will be your truth, but let's just call it like it is. I love just being super raw, and I hope that we can have this space. This
Of
is a
course,
space. If I know you, this is a space for it. Um,
100%.
Yeah, it is. Stuff's hard sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just hard. It is, you know, getting in the trenches, and becoming that best version of you. Sometimes it sucks, but you got to embrace the suck, right? And just
Yeah.
keep going. I just came across that as I was telling you all the wonderful things. I'm like, oh my gosh, life has changed and it's so wonderful. The part I didn't tell you is it's been hard as hell getting here.
Yeah.
Um, my two daughters started school and one's a senior. And
Wow.
I got into this little crying fest, which we know can take us. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is the last everything.
Yeah.
When I took that picture that I've been taking of her since she's been in school, that last backpack picture, but I'm like, just I felt like I wanted to give up for a hot minute. There was a lot of other stuff going on with my multiple businesses. I was like, oh my gosh, one of my Airbnbs, the electricity blew, and it all hit at once. And I was like, gosh, do I just want to sell everything and forget it?
Mm.
But it's like that 3 foot from gold to go, no, keep going, because that's where the greatness is.
I love that. Yeah. Senior year for my son was the most trying year for me. Like it's every single thing was, I was in tears because it was the last this, the last that, the last prom. This is the last this. Oh, and then throwing COVID for his last year. It's like that really screwed everything up and was not at all what was planned. And but I also and like you just got to give yourself a lot of grace. It is a grieving process. Like I was literally going through that grieving for probably 2 years before it even got there. And then the year that I was in it. And then since then, because I had done so much, I think processing before and during that after, it was a much easier transition than I thought it was going to be because I let myself experience all that during it.
I love that you said that, because mine too, you and I've talked about this. I had one that graduated in 2020, which was kind of all, nobody prepares you when your kid's going to graduate and move out and the things. And you're right. It's like a mourning. And so having been through that, I know what's coming with her. So I appreciate you saying that. And I guarantee you there's somebody listening that is in this boat with us or about to embark in this boat or get in this boat, of just that child leaving. And I decided when she come home yesterday and she was so excited about school, I was like, you know what? We're going to rock this thing. We're
Yeah.
going to talk about it, and we're just going to have fun with it. I wasn't always the best mom, which is why I speak on You're Enough behind me, and why I'm probably even on this podcast, is when I was in my addiction, I was not that mom. And it feels damn good to be here now. It's not where we were, it's how we finish.
Yeah. Do you
That's
feel
what I
like your kids are appreciative of that because they know you for what you used to be and the work you've made and where you are now? Because I feel like my kids kind of took me, not for granted, but I was consistent their whole life. I ended their addiction long before my addiction, long before I had them. So I was consistent, I was reliable, and I almost feel like they took that for granted. Whereas for you, they got to see both sides of it, and they're probably so appreciative of what they have.
I'm very honest with them about mom's addictions and all the things that mom's done that I'm not proud of. And there's a laundry list of them. And so I'm just real open. During COVID, there's always good and bad. COVID had a lot of suck to it, but in the good, I remember I took my son on a walk because there was nothing else to do. And we went for a walk, and I said, mom was not always there for you when you needed me. And I got to apologize. And I'll never forget that ever. It was one of my most favorite moments. I'm trying not to even tear up. And my kids appreciate that. And they know, they're like, well, and I'm a speaker. So I have spoken at their schools and stuff. And sometimes they're probably like, oh my gosh, but I think they love it when people come and go, man, your mom's so cool. And so they've just been around that mom used to not be the best mom. And for that matter, dad wasn't either, but we did have a Mimi that was pretty consistent in their life and doing great things for them, which I'm very grateful of.
I love that.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I'm excited for you for your final year. It was by far my favorite time of year is fall. It's football. It's back to school. It's all the new and excitingness, all the possibilities and opportunities for kids. You see it in their eyes. It's like at the beginning of the year. It's a pretty cool phase to be in right now. And I'm glad you're able to be there and be present with your girl going through that.
Yeah, I love that. blessed for sure.
Awesome. So tell me about that. You pointed to your placard, You're Enough. Where does that originate? Let's talk about that.
Oh, let's talk about it. Okay. Well, I'll say for the majority of my life, I never felt I was good enough. And that really started around 5 years old. I co-authored a book, and I just so happened my editor was one at digging. She made me dig a lot and touching my emotions. And even as early as that was, I still have some memory of my mom and dad divorcing and my dad never being present. And I remember my dad had, when my mom and him divorced, he had to drive through our neighborhood to get to his house that he had started his new family with, a new wife, new kids. And he would just drive by our house, and I would be standing outside, and I'd stay close to the house. I don't really know why I did that. I wanted him to just stop and say hi, but I just stayed pretty close to the house. But one day I got up enough nerve and I ran out to the curb, and I mean, basically the street, almost on top of his car, yelling, "Daddy, daddy, daddy." And he just kept driving. And that, to me, that was the start. The divorce wasn't great, but that was the start of, if my own daddy doesn't love me, who will ever love me? Now, of course, I didn't think that at that early of an age, but that's where that all that started. And how I wanted to cope with that was with food. My relationship with food become pretty unhealthy after my mom and dad's divorce. And I would get teased a lot as in elementary, save the beach, hard to Puna Dawn. And as I transitioned into elementary and high school, I was like, well, I'm going to become the bullier. I was bullied, so I become mean. I hung out with people who did drugs. At that point, the only thing I was really doing was smoking weed, just weed and cigarettes, and partying and doing things with boys, sleeping around. Anybody who would have me, I'm like, okay, if you could give me a little bit of that attention, that's fine. I'll
It's
do that.
empowering for a young girl. Like, it seems like, oh, it's, so degrading, but it can be empowering too when you're feeling very low self-esteem. That's the one thing you can give where you get a lot of praise and acknowledgement and validation.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Because I wasn't getting it anywhere else. So I was like, well, let me just give myself away to anybody that would have me.
Yeah.
And so, that transpired. I ended up quitting school. My mom was married to an alcoholic, and she ended up divorcing him, and then she took him back right around my senior year, and he had tried to kill us. And I'm like, if you're taking him back, I'm out. So I ended up quitting school like in March. I should have just held on, but nevertheless, my mom let me quit. I moved out on my own and had to have several jobs to make ends meet. I say several. I had 2 jobs, and then I sold Avon on the side. I'm like, I don't know that Avon counts, but I was hustling. Okay.
Of course it counts. That's work, man. Selling those products are not easy.
Right. And so I was hustling back then. And that behavior just kept on. I mean, that I end up, I met a really awesome guy, and I ended up marrying him. And man, I just didn't know what love was. Great guy to this day, an amazing, amazing man. Ended up doing great things with his life, good looking too. But I just didn't know how to accept love. And so, of course, I end up wrecking that marriage. He says he had his hand in it as well, but I was a big part of that.
That's nice, though. That's high responsibility on his part. That means,
yes,
that's where the healing begins. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So I end up remarrying for my second marriage, and he was a really good looking cowboy. I'm in Texas. And so I ended up marrying everything I try to get away from. Nothing, I don't want to speak bad about him. He is the sweetest, most gentle soul, but I had a food addiction, shopping addiction. If there was an addiction out there, I wanted to try it. Sex addiction, shopping, and I did forget, I did leave out a part. I did dabble in IV drug using for a while. I don't even like needles. It was crazy though, because that addiction was real when you want it and you get that high. So
there is definitely a secondary addiction to the ritual of the needle. I've seen that so much. It's almost as hard to give up as the high from what you're doing.
Yeah, it was crazy. Thank by the grace of God, I didn't stay in that
Yeah.
too long, and it was meth. I don't think it's the meth that was done today. This was in the earlier 90s. So, but getting back over here to that husband, you know, with addiction, he had his own set of addiction. I did too. Had two kids, as you heard me say at this point, trying to raise them. Thank gosh for the Mimi. But I knew I was just out of control. I wasn't happy. Even though I had a business, I got into the beauty industry right out of school.
Mm.
I have a spa and salon, and I also had a nonprofit, and people are like, oh my gosh, she's like famous in her town. She's doing all these things. At this point, I'd had gastric bypass. I had lost a lot of weight. Had somebody come in my spa that gave me some negative attention while I was married, and he was a bull rider. And I was like, oh, how would I try that for a while? And I ended up having an affair.
Mm.
No pride in that whatsoever. I don't know if anybody here believes in God, but if you do, you might believe in the enemy. And so those hooks were synced into me. And before I knew it, it's like I almost didn't know I could get out. And I ended up going away to, my friend sent me to a rehab of
Mm.
all things here in Texas. It was called Shades of Hope. And she, I don't think she really knew it was a rehab. She just knew that I was out of control a little bit. And she's like, they do a lot of food addiction.
Mm.
So she said, I'll pay for it if you go. And I was like, oh no, I'm not going to take your money. And before I knew it, I was signed up. I was going, I'm there doing the paperwork. And I realized I'm in friggin' rehab. I was like, I don't want that on my record. There's no way I'm going to do rehab on my record. And I
Which is
even
so
said
funny.
it
It's
out
like,
loud.
what record?
Is that not the truth? I mean, the
Yeah,
thing,
it's like,
the
what record?
lie,
Like, it's HIPAA
the,
protected, but yeah, I get it.
yeah, the lies in our head that we make up,
Yeah.
like I don't even know. And so, yeah, that is funny. I'm
Yeah.
touching that for a minute to go, what? Um, Crazy. So I ended up, I stayed. It was a 7-day course. And the lady told me, she said, the director, she said, I don't think you have what it takes to go back home and break up with that boyfriend and get your life back on track. She said, you are extremely codependent. And that's what I learned from
Mm.
that thing of rehab. It wasn't about the food going in and, oh, I'm going to just walk out of here and it's going to magically be amazing. I learned I was incredibly codependent. And to fast forward, because I don't want to forget to tell you this part, 10 years later, they had me back to be one of their speakers. They were celebrating, I think, their 40th year in business. And
Wow.
when she introduced me as this. She said, to date, she said, I've been in counseling for 40 years and I have never met a stronger case of codependency than our next speaker.
Wow.
I wanted to climb underneath the table because I was so
Wow.
embarrassed. But
That's the
I
first time you'd heard her say that, like and in
I've
that format.
never,
Wow.
yeah, she and I have become friends. You know, after our 2-year thing, we had to wait because she was my counselor. She said that my codependency was off the
Wow.
chain. She named me as a crumb chaser. And what that meant was they would do this little skit with the people that were in this group to work through their addiction or whatever they had going on.
Mhm.
She said when it came time for me and they knew my story, that her and her daughter that was a counselor, they had to walk outside and go, what do we do with her? And
Mm.
what they ended up doing, God, I'm going to go raw here. They ended up taking little Kleenexes, right? They took little Kleenex parts and they wadded them up
Mhm.
in like little crumbs. And they handed the people in my life, that boyfriend, that husband, and a few other people, they handed them crumbs. I want to cry here right now because I
Mm.
just can't even believe I did this. I mean, our human mind is just interesting, isn't it?
It is.
They both of the guys that I had my mom and them over there with crumbs, but that was irrelevant. I was worried about the crumbs that the person playing my boyfriend and the person playing my husband were carrying. And I went over there and I was trying to get those crumbs back. I wanted them damn
Wow.
crumbs. And it was just that I would take whatever anybody would give me. I
Wow.
was looking for love, but I didn't know I needed to get it from me. I was never taught that. In
Yeah.
the 2000s, 90, 2000s, nobody was teaching this kind of stuff.
No.
Um, and what was crazier about the crumbs, when it was all said and done, they threw the crumbs in the trash can. There was nothing else in this treatment room in the trash can except for my crumbs. When everybody, it's so embarrassing to say this.
It's a process. Don't be embarrassed.
When everybody left, I went and dug those damn crumbs out of the trash.
Yeah.
What I was going to do with those, or what they represented, I have no idea. Maybe God knew I was going to tell this story and somebody
Yeah.
else is going to get it. Maybe that was the whole point of that. But we went to our bonfire that night, and we were supposed to write a letter or write something that we were going to put in the fire.
Yeah.
Well, I pulled out my little crumbs.
Oh, you brought
I
them.
just happened to have this setting at my desk. It was my to-do list. And I wadded it up earlier. I pulled out of my sweatshirt my crumbs, and I said, I'm going to throw away my crumbs. The counselor's eyes were this big. They were like, where did you get those?
Right.
I was like, I dug them out of the trash. And I think that was a lot of, I'm sure I was the topic of discussion later that night.
Yeah.
I think that's where they got that I had such a strong codependency issue going on there, addiction, whatever. And so I did come home and I did break up with that boyfriend. It was hard. It was hard to do. And I tried to make my marriage work, and we just couldn't get it.
Yeah.
And I would love to tell you that from rehab, I went ahead and straightened completely up, but I only straightened up parts of me. I probably needed a lot longer
Yeah.
time.
Well, and like you said, layers of an onion, right? You handle the most glaring things first, but then as that peels away, then more is exposed. You can never even get to the inner until you work on that outer.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Well, so the next one's a doozy. The next one's a big onion peel. So as I went out with my divorce, I was like, well, I wasn't going to be alone. I mean, even though I'd worked through a lot of codependency, I was like, oh no, I'm not. Nope, 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 nope. I went out to look for a new person, and why not go to the bar, right?
Of course. Lots of persons at bars.
Yeah, seemed logical to me.
Yeah.
So I end up seeing this guy standing along the wall, and he was younger than I am. And so I was like, man, I'm gonna have to, he's good looking, musician type, tall, dark, handsome, total bad boy with tats, loved it. And I was like, I'm gonna have to say something super cool to get this dude's attention. So I walked up to him and I said, I want to swim in your soul.
Mm.
My friends are like, what'd you say to him? And I said, I want to swim in your soul. And they're like, oh, that's so weird. And I was like, yeah, I know, it's so weird. I don't even know why I said it. But they're like, I don't know. He hadn't quit staring at you the whole time. That's why we wanted to know what you said.
Yeah, he's never heard that pickup line before. He was
right.
like,
That's
what?
right.
Yeah.
So anyhow, he comes over to me and he's like, hey, I'd love to go out on a date with you. We went out on a date, and we got into just a crazy relationship. That is exactly what we did. We swam in each other's soul. We were just two broken people just hooking up. And I wasn't feeling too great. So I was seeing a doctor because, I mean, you heard me say I'd had gastric. I'm partying, I'm smoking pot, I'm doing the things. I'm still, as to what people thought in my hometown, doing amazing things. And I still was doing really good things for my community. But man, I was struggling inside. I had never truly dealt with what I needed to deal with. And God kept trying to get my attention. He's like, Dawn, tapping on me, Dawn.
Yeah.
And I just kept doing whatever in the heck I wanted to do. And so I ended up getting pregnant by this guy. And the doctor had told me with my second child, I should never have another child because I had a lot of scar tissue, had a lot of issues after having her. And I just, like I said, I was doing whatever I wanted to do. So I went to see my doctor, and they said, you can't have this baby. You need to abort the baby. And I was like, well, that's really not my thing. That's not what I want to do. I love kids. I have a nonprofit for kids. Are you kidding me? So long story short, after 4 doctors, I had one that had been doing this for 40 years. And he said, I don't suggest you have a baby. I've been doing this so long. I think that there's some issues. If you have 2 other kids that you need to take care of, I just don't advise it. Needless to say, I end up letting them take that baby. And it was the darkest day of my life. To date has been the worst day of my life. It was dark. It was really dark. And I remember after my friend brought me back because we had to go out of town to have it done. And when I woke up, I was in the lounge chair with my daughter at the time. She was very young, and my son was sitting over the couch, and the TV was on, and I ended up turning it. And I remember Oprah was on with Tony Robbins. And Tony was saying some stuff, and I was like, oh, yeah, that's good. And later on that evening, it was getting wee hours of the morning. I transitioned into my bedroom, and I turned the TV on, and it just happened to be a rerun of that same segment. And I was like, maybe that's a sign. And I ended up going to a Tony Robbins event, and then I ended up working events, crewing events, and I did that for a long time. And I also looked to God. I was like, God, if you are who you say you are, I picked up the Bible, and I was like, I need help because I feel broken. And I was like, I never was a good reader. And I just understood that Bible, and I got it. And I remember thinking, God, that he was knocking for me, but he allowed me to get knocked off the mountain, but he got my attention.
Right.
And I started straightening up my life, and I said, God, I'll wait for what you have for me. And within doing, traveling with Tony's events and stuff, I realized there was a message. I felt God giving me a message because I think if you ask yourself good questions, you're going to get good answers. And I was like, why did a baby die? Like what was behind that? And my answer was, I didn't know I was good enough. I didn't, as you heard me say, I just always gave myself away, and I didn't look to me to what could be healing. And I was already speaking. People would come, bring me in. People thought I was doing these great things.
Yeah.
But I ended up trademarking the word "you're enough." And
Smart.
I remember having friends that were famous speakers, and they're like, how did you do that? And I was like, I think when you're deemed for something, nobody can get your good. I think when God has that for you, and I've had to go, I would love to tell you that it kind of all stopped there. I've had to go through hell.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us have been through hell.
Yeah.
And I'm talking, is it all right to cuss?
Of course.
I love Jesus, but I cuss some. I'm talking shit.
Yeah.
I'm talking, and if we want to talk shit, I'm talking, I was so comfortable in the pile of it. I didn't want to climb out of the warmth of the comfort of it. Just being in a pile of Duke, it's just warm, it's comforting, and it stinks, and it's yucky, it's messy.
But it's
I had
comfortable.
I had so much fear of what climbing out would be.
Yeah.
That I was like, I think I'll stay right here. But I as you heard me say, my story sucked. And I had to go, you got to get out there.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I'm at today. I did a lot of studying. I've studied for over a decade of self-worth. I've spoken. This is going to be the first place, not even on my own platform, have I admitted this, but I think, as you heard me say, I can't relate to anybody if I can't be relatable and raw. That's just that. Even though I had this "you're enough" behind me, I still was not embracing it to the fullest that I knew I could. And I hid behind it. I got back into the pile of Duke to go, I just will play not full out because I don't feel I'm good enough in certain parts. I'm telling you, we're being raw right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had, and the thing is, I thought I was fooling people. I was like, oh, I have the website. I've been out on tour. I've done all the things. And I felt like I was fooling somebody, and people see through that.
Some people
because
can.
They can. And, even you and I, we were just together, this last year, I still wasn't there. And that's why we got right into the podcast, because I'm like, I've changed. I've done some hard stuff I knew I needed to do. So when I started pulling those legs and those arms out of the poop, I was in a relationship. Well, let me back up. After that whole abortion thing, I waited for God. I end up getting in a relationship. He was a good, godly man. I'm not going to speak ill of him. We just wanted some different things. We should have been together for a much shorter season, but I stayed in it for 11 years. And I knew the beginning wasn't bad. That's the way most relationships are, right? Some suck from the beginning, some not so much. But I lost myself in the process of staying because I was in love with the potential.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, well, it's okay because you're enough. That's not what I speak on. I don't really speak on relationship part. I speak on these other things of getting out of just, this certain part of dysfunction. So getting out of that 11-year relationship and, getting rid of 75% of my clutter. You would never walk in my house. I'm in my house today. I'm not at the office. You would never walk in my house and go, oh gosh, anything is messed up, because it looks like a dollhouse just around. I just have everything's just so. But if you opened a drawer or if you opened my garage, you would go, whoa. Closet. How many purses does one need? How many shoes? How many antiques needs to set in one's garage? So getting rid of that, getting rid of a relationship that was hard to step out. I'm talking, guys, these were the hard things. These were hard for me. They allowed a much more space to do the things that God was wanting me to do with You're Enough.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. And now the thing is, I've been overweight since you heard me say since I was 5. I still tinker with about 40 something pounds overweight. What I had to realize was this is my truth, maybe not yours. It was emotional stuff I was dragging.
Yeah.
This extra poundage was nothing to do with what was going in my mouth. It was emotional stuff that I was carrying. Yes, it was somewhat of stuff of food, but the majority of why the food was going in my mouth, it was because what I was carrying, not the last bit of onion, but the big piece of onion peeling that I was like, no, I want more, but no, I want more, but no. And that's where I'm at today. And it's crazy how the weight you'll start ridding yourself of weight. I don't like lose weight because it means you'll find it again if you lose something. I'm talking ridding of the clutter. And that is really, I think a lot of where I'm going with You're Enough is, where is your clutter?
Yes. Clutter and protection. We keep it to keep it safe and to keep the distance and to keep the 6 feet. If I can create that in my own body that creates that, then I'm comfortable with that as well. So, yeah, I mean, it's so much, like you said, mental attached with that extra weight.
It is mental. I am in a class, we meet about 5 days a week, and when we're not meeting, we talk a lot about that. And it's some Bob Proctor stuff, but it is nonstop in my head of nothing's going to change if nothing changes. And I hope I didn't leave out, because I would like to get into some tools real quick before we finish. But I hope I explained. I know I kind of transitioned abruptly into the abortion and into the relationship into which I just got out of in the last, 4 months. But
no, I think it was a good transition. And the thing that I love that you hit on, which we don't talk enough about with addiction, is the codependency. It is such a huge part on both sides of addiction. And it's really the people that we struggle with fully handling are the ones that are in a very codependent relationship, because the person on the other side will tolerate and allow old behavior because they need it as much as the person who is addicted. So I love that you touched on that, because it is a huge part of addiction that's rarely talked about.
Oh, yeah. And I will tell you, even though I went through that short course of it, I had to realize that in that 11 year, because I just thought that was going to change everything. And I was really hard on myself. I was like, oh, you should have changed. You already went through something. And I'm like, no, what I had to realize was, um, I was still playing in this 11-year relationship. I'm not speaking ill of him. But because I had my own stuff in it, but I never knew really how to have a relationship, and apparently he didn't either. And so we just got comfortable with each other, and just that codependency came out. And what sucks about that is I taught my kids some of that, but you heard me say we're talking about that. Me and my kids are talking about it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the best way to do. Bring that elephant that's in the middle of the living room. Let's talk about that. But where I'm at now, or what the change was, like you heard me say, I've been with Tony Robbins, I've done Joe Dispenza, I Ed Milet, Andy Frisella, Bob Proctor, Jack Canfield. I mean, I am obsessed with being a better human. And I think it almost has to come to that. I know obsessed is a big word, but I think you gotta participate in your own saving. And for me, what I had to learn was, and I think you're going to get this, and I hope a lot of your listeners will. You've got to pretend. First of all, you got to know who you want to be. Who do you want to be? How do you want to see yourself?
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't know that, get to know that. Get to know, what do I even want? What is my purpose? Some people listening might go, I think that's great, but I don't know my purpose. Start asking yourself good questions and you're going to get good answers. What do I love? What would I love to do all day if I didn't need the money? And if you really start getting into your passion, most of the time it's going to lead you into your purpose. I know for me, I've had a spa and salon for 30 years. Don't do the math. I was 12 when I started. I have a nonprofit for kids. I have Airbnbs. But man, the thing that lights me up, and this is where I'm going, this is where I am headed in this next chapter, is my purpose. I had to go through all the mess to get to the message. And my message is, through the cross, you're enough. You are enough. And I don't just run around and go, oh, you're enough, baby, the way you are. I'm like, no, what life do you want? And what are you willing to go do and to be and to have to get to that best version so you can work your purpose out better? I don't work my purpose out better at 300 pounds. And that gets conflicting for some people. They're like, so are you saying I'm not enough at 300 pounds? Nope. I'm saying if that's the best version of you, that's great. I truly might not think that it is, because I know it's hard. It's hard to carry all that weight, but sometimes we'll lie to ourselves and tell ourselves that we're good like that. But I am telling you, taking good physical care of yourself. And when I would hear this, I'd be like, whatever, especially being around Andy Frisella, 75 Hard, and all the things. Yeah. Sometimes I wanted to go, no, but there is truth to taking good care of yourself. You're getting one body. Why not be the very best version of you? Like right now, I'm on a grapefruit fast right now. There's some answers I want from God, and I'm not going full fasting, but I'm on a grapefruit cleanse right this moment. Okay. And so I'm getting pretty clear. Things are clear for me. But I just say taking care of the best version. I mean, taking care of you. And I know, Angie, you have something you can add to that, because you definitely are there.
Yeah, well, like you, I mean, I think especially with what we're dealing with in society is you're being taught, and I love this, body positivity. You love your body regardless of, how it looks or performs or feels. But I think that's a slippery slope, because when you're not feeding it well and you're sick, you don't feel well. So it's not fueling the thing that you're trying to create. It's not like I hate my body because I'm fat, but it's like it's not performing. It doesn't feel good. Like I talked about the CrossFit champion, and she won at the same time the Barbie movie came out. And she's like, for me, it's not about how it looks. It's how do I feel when I'm performing at my best? Like that's a thing that I'm always chasing. The way it looks is a beautiful side effect. But again, and I like society saying love your body, but I think it's a slippery slope, because I think if you just do whatever and allow it to be and just love it, you're not being your best possible person.
I think, and I agree, slippery slope. I mean, my followers know I have been overweight, as you heard me say, since I was 5. But it's same with any addiction. Maybe people overweight are not dealing with the addiction of food, but almost all of them that I've come in contact with, and there is a lot that is what's going on. And just really getting to that point where you love yourself. If you love yourself big, that's fine. Just make sure you're healthy.
Yeah.
That's the thing, because I hit, as you know, when we were in Virginia, that was kind of always my take. Okay, well, I'm healthy. I'm healthy. I'm healthy, even though I'm 50, 60 pounds overweight, until we found a mass when I was in Virginia with you. And when you and I went on a walk, I did not feel good. My heart was starting to suffer from that. And that's what I mean by taking good care of yourself and loving yourself, which is one of my topics I speak on is love. I think it sucks that I've spoken all over the place to thousands of people, being around Tony type people, Tony working his events and other people's events that I've worked. Man, I haven't hardly met very many people that love themselves. That's a problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a big problem, that they hate who they are. And suicide is been around forever, but it is on the rise.
It is, and it's not being talked about. It's not being talked about as much as it needs to be, because it is huge. Yeah.
It's huge. And that's another reason why I'm stepping in. I'm going in. And that's what I meant earlier of I'm just going to have to whisper it, because I'm like, oh my gosh, just telling the truth. I would sit and tell people, don't worry about what other people think of you. And I'm like, having to hold a mirror up to me to go, are you worrying? Because if you weren't worrying, you would go out and just, who cares what anybody else thinks, and say and do. And whether you said it right or not, I'm not going to say everything right on this podcast today, but I showed up. I showed up for whoever's listening that's in a struggle. Because somebody's listening is like, man, I'm there. And we showed up for them today, didn't we?
Yeah.
But that's the thing, is to go, Dawn, show up no matter how you're showing up. I actually made a video the other day coloring up my gray hair. And the inboxes that I got, I even had some of my chubby arm hanging out of my t-shirt. I saw it while I was videoing. I was like, who cares? I'm just gonna use it. I'm working on myself, and I was having a good talk that needed to be talked about. And I think when you're just raw like that, I think people love it.
Yeah, I call it genuine. And I forget who said this, but they were talking about, different vibrational levels, and even above love. And we always consider love as the highest vibration you can have, is genuineness. And when they said that, I kind of had to think about it. And I was like, I 100% agree with that, because the more genuine I am for who I am and what I say and what I do, and not to say I'm careless or reckless in my communication, but more people relate to it, because maybe they were having that thought, they would just never be willing to say it for fear of judgment or whatever it is. People really love genuineness. It resonates.
Yes. And I'm going to give you a compliment, because you are that. You are the epitome of that. You have mastered the art of that for sure. Yeah. And I love that. And I'm stepping more into that. Some of it's come with age. I made a video today. I had these glasses on that were huge. I look like a fly, and I just addressed it. I was like, I do look like a fly today, and we're just going to I was working out. I was walking. I was like, we're just going to keep on and just, because the message is good today. So,
I love that.
yeah. So just never mind the fly. And, so that's really where I'm at, is changing my mind as to how do I want to have it? And I get emotionally involved with it. Okay. So I don't meditate as much as I need to. And I'm really funny about, like, I want to make sure that I'm doing godly meditation. And I envision myself the Dawn that I want to have. Who do you want to be? How do you want to look? And I step into that like it's really happening, because our subconscious doesn't know the difference, right?
Yeah.
And I also participate in 369. You've maybe heard that. I write three times in the morning what I'm really wanting, my goal, like what's my goal? Not a simple goal, it's a goal I don't know how to really obtain. And I write it, and I write how grateful I am. And I also and then I write it 6 times at lunch and 9 times before I go to bed, right as that subconscious is about to take over. But the key for me has been the change since I've seen you has been that, and just deciding that it's not going to go down like this. I'm not going to continue to be mean to me.
Good.
And just love myself and step out in the person that I know God wants me to be, and encourage other people that they are good enough. And I do have a little bit of a following on TikTok, and I'm going to, I'm saying this because I got it. Once I say it, I have to hold myself accountable to it.
That's right. Okay.
I am going to I have a lot of merchandise, and I'm like, I'm going to get on TikTok like I see a lot of younger people, and I'm like, oh, I can't do that because I'm not young enough. And I'm like, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to give my message while I sell my merch. So I hold me accountable to that, girl.
Okay,
That
will do.
Yes, that is what I want to do as we're moving, as I'm moving forward into stepping into what my calling is, and encouraging whoever is listening. What is it that you want?
Yeah.
And what are you willing to give for it? And reminding you that you're enough to go get that.
Oh, I love that. I'm totally visioning you as like the modern day QVC on your own platform. So you don't even have to go through all of their stuff, and like just rocking it in that world. I could totally see that for you. I think that is a beautiful and amazing picture. I love it.
Thank you. I just love loving on people. That's it, man. When I just want to love and just remind people that they're worthy.
Yeah.
And that they matter, and that they have a purpose. And I'll say this, I want you to hold me accountable to this too. I've had a book deal. I actually have even had people who make books bestsellers say, I'd make your book a bestseller, but I was I wasn't too afraid. How could I compete with other people? I was not knowing my worth.
Yep. Imposter syndrome.
Yep. And we're here, and I'm going to come out with the book. I already have the title. I fought the title for a long time.
Yeah.
But I'm going to do it. Maybe you know what? Maybe we could come back podcast when the book hits.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I want to share the title. I was like, I felt like, nope, it's not time.
Is
to
it
share
not here enough? It's going to be something different.
No, it's something that it's going to blow your hair back. But it's something I fought. I was a titanium speaker for a famous speaker. I won't mention his name and stuff, but he's like, you have to come out with that book. And at that point, I would not share my abortion story. And he's like, you have to share your abortion story. The story you're the most afraid to share, you must. And my platform isn't about the abortion. My platform is about people hear my story, but they feel theirs, and just what God can do in your life, to whatever story you're afraid, whatever chapter you don't want read out loud, you can be forgiven, and you don't have to keep it in the dark. And
I love that, because I do believe that the shame that we carry over stuff is far more detrimental than the actual harmful or perceived harmful situation. It's the shame that we carry that really does us in.
Oh, I had so much shame. And the more I started sharing it, the more light was shed on it. And now I can talk about it without even crying. Because I feel like I never know if this is what I'm supposed to share, but I feel I am. You want to go on a journey with me really quick?
Of course.
Do you mind?
No,
okay.
Let's go.
So when I, had the abortion before, when I was really wanting to keep the baby, I went and I bought this baby an outfit. Okay. I had decided I was going to keep it. And after the abortion, I had to get rid of the outfit. I couldn't look at it. But what was crazy is I'm wearing the outfit. I wanted that outfit back for some reason. just so happens a girl that I gave it to brought it back to me and said, hey, this is not going to fit my baby. I don't know if you want it back. She said, my baby will be in shorts and this is like a onesie. And if you want it back, there was maybe somebody you can give it to. And I was so glad to have that thing back, but I thought, what am I going to do with it? So I ended up putting it on a sock monkey. You remember the antique sock monkeys?
Oh yeah.
And I put it in the top of my closet, and I really wouldn't even look. I didn't want to make eye contact with it because it reminded me. But as I healed, I started noticing that sock monkey. And I said, one day, I said, you never lived a day, but I'm going to share our story. And you will affect people whether you realize it or not. Now, I don't normally show it. Excuse me, you're in my closet with me. But I felt like somebody needed to hear, see. And so this is at the top. Sorry, it's crown. I have a crown on its head and its little crown just fell off. But this is it. This was the outfit. And so I just keep it, and I will look at this sock monkey, and I'm like, we'll change the world. We're going to change the people that God puts in front of us to change.
Yeah.
And really, I think God definitely knew what was going to happen. You know, that mountain that he allowed me to fall off, he knew it was going to be the one thing that was going to wake me up, because without that, as bad as that was, there would be no You're Enough movement.
Yep.
There would be no book. There would not be us on this podcast. And I even, with my parents, you know, I blame them efficiently now. Thank you for giving me life, and thank you for all the heartache and all the pain, because had I not had that, there would not be any of this.
Yeah. I love that, man. The difference between when we first talked, and when was that? Like January, February? March compared to now. It's just, you've come so far. It's amazing. And I love watching you step into it, all in the name of helping someone else. I mean, it's the whole reason I started this podcast. My first thought was, well, if I could reach, and it was during the pandemic, if I could just reach and help one person, that's why I want to do this. And you were a good reminder to me today of, not that I need it, but why I do this. It's like, if our words can help just one person, it doesn't matter how many downloads, subscribes, views, followers, like all that shit's irrelevant. It's, did you help one person by doing what you did? And
Right.
your message for sure is going to help at least one person through this format. But I like to think we're reaching millions and helping millions with this.
There you go. Well, I just really appreciate you allowing me the space to share my story, and to show, you know, just to show what, yeah. So it is, it's been a process.
Yeah.
Will continue to be a process, but just really stepping into this trademark that has taken me years. I'm not saying I wasn't doing great things before, but it was just that next level to go, oh gosh, here we go. And, it's just go time. And to go to that next level. I've done some amazing things. I don't get me wrong, but it's just time to go all in.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's perfect. You know, you're going to be present for your daughter's last year in school, and then it's going to be go time. Right now, you're just building that foundation, because the second she's done with school and you have that freedom, it is on for you. I can totally see it.
Yeah. It's awesome.
So let me ask you a question. You had mentioned, in your estimation, you do not spend enough time in meditation and prayer. What is your ideal time for spending per day? Is there like a metric you're trying to reach, or just where you feel like it's enough?
You know, I speak, or in our classes, most of our instructors and our people in their class, they do daily, and that would actually be idea for me. I'd like to spend 15 minutes a day. I get shoo, and I have to bring my mind back. So it's a habit. It's a learned behavior that I need to just be better in it. Definitely prayer and everything every day, journal, gratitude. I have a list of things that I do, but I have to do that list. Some people are like, whoa, you do have a little list that you do. But for me and the type of personality I have, it's a must for me. The only thing I really want to add to it is a little more meditation for me. Do you meditate?
I do. I do. I am erratic. Like I struggle with routine. Like so I make it different every single day. But I do a lot of walking meditation. So like I walk my dogs and then I just am just fully present in nature. And that's where I feel like I have this strong connection. If I just try sitting there in silence, I really struggle with getting my brain to just do nothing. And that feels like I know it's working,
Yeah.
but at the same time, I don't feel like it's productive. So I try to set myself up to where I feel the most productive.
Right. Well, I've not done the dog walking thing. I should do that. I like
Oh, it's
that. Thank you for
amazing.
that.
Yeah, it's
Thank you for
amazing
that.
because then you're fully present in nature. I don't have on music or audibles or, podcasts. Like I normally used to always inundate my brain with shit. And now I just take all that away and then I'm just present with nature, which is awesome.
Don't you think we need to do that more often? Don't you think we need to set this down?
Yes.
And
Yes.
there is a thing. I don't know what it's not my forte, it's not my study, but I know it works. Is when you go out into nature, there is something so healing about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I'm super fortunate. So I live in a redwood forest. So like a mile from my house, I'm in the middle of a redwood forest, and a mile and a half from my house, I have the beach. It's not like swimming water. It's Pacific Northwest. It's a little chilly, but it's amazing to take off your shoes and just ground in the sand and the ions and the positive energy from the earth and the ocean, because she's so powerful. Like, so for me, like I can't help but just exist in gratitude for what I'm witnessing. It instantly puts me in that space. It's not like I have to create things in my mind that I'm grateful for. I'm just there enjoying it.
Oh, I love that. I love it.
Yeah.
I have a place at the lake, and then I have a place in the mountains, and water for me, water
Yeah.
is the thing. People are like, you don't love the mountains more? And I was like, I do love it, but that's 7 hours away and the lake's 15. But I would love the ocean. I just took my kid, I just got back from vacation from the ocean, and man, you're right. She's powerful. There's something about it. It just, the outdoors. So thank you for that advice. I learned that today. I'm definitely going to try that on.
Well, and it
And
does my favorite thing, which is multitasking, because I have to be doing at least two things at once for me to feel
right.
normal. And so when I can walk my dogs and walk, which is exercise, and be mindful, like it's like, holy shit, now I got like 3 or 4 things that I'm multitasking.
Yes.
I literally
Okay.
just
I love
walking.
that. I love how you put it, because I'm like you. I'm like, I've got to be doing something. Usually I'm listening to, because I listen to something every day, and I was like, okay, I've got to at least be doing that while I'm walking. So I could add my mindfulness, get the dogs out, walk, yes, thank you.
Yes, do it
Yeah,
all.
good.
I
That's
love it.
good.
So tell me about your grapefruit cleanse. How long have you been on that?
Today's my first day, and I'll tell you,
Oh,
um, a friend of mine, she did it for 3 days. She's like, you should try 3 days. And
mhm.
I told her, I sent her a picture. I had a real pretty bowl. I was like, well, if this is all I'm doing, I'm going to at least doll it up in a pretty bowl. And she said, your life's about to change. She swears
Interesting.
by it. I've never
For
done that.
grapefruit. I have never heard this.
I me neither, but
Like how
I
much
love
and
it.
what is the purpose? There's some healing quality in grapefruit, or it's just what is the deal?
You know what? I'm going to sit here and lie to you, because I don't know.
Well, I will ask you at the end of 3 days. How about that?
Yes, I admire her so much that I was like, I don't really know. She said, give it one day, do it one day. So today's day one. She said, and then see how you do, and then go back and then try 3. That's what she did. She
Okay.
said things came alive for her.
Hmm.
She's doing a lot of, she has a big following. And so she was about to launch something. She said she just got incredibly creative.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, I think anytime you fast, there's a lot of greatness that happens.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm used to fasting with just water. I think 3 has been my max, but I know I definitely want to go for 4 next time, just to push outside that boundary. Yeah.
They say 7 like really does. They say it resets everything.
Yep.
I think you're a bad, you know what, that you've done 3. I've never done 3. One
Uh-huh.
has been it for me. So how did you feel after the 3rd?
Yeah, I feel really good. And I think you'll relate to this as well. Being a former meth head, I did meth because of the, weight loss and whatever. So to do it naturally, causatively, and feeling like in control of I can eat or I can't eat, either way, I'm in control. I'm hungry. now I'm not hungry, just like allowing myself to go through that process. And then the emotional stuff where I'm like hungry, so now I'm sad, just like sitting with it, working through it. It truly is like a spiritual empowerment thing with you over your body. I think you should try it. It's amazing. I mean, maybe start out with 48, but for me, it is a way for me to be causative over my body, feel alive again, control my emotions, and it just puts me in total control, which I love.
I love that. I need to try that. We need
Yeah.
at least 48 hour, huh?
Do it. Well, I mean, and I was like, the first time I did it, I've probably done it probably 10 times in the last couple of years. But the first time I did it, I'm working with my mentor and he's this badass, black belt. He's always pushing me on mindset. And he's like, now you're going to go into the gym and you're going to PR. And I was like, there is no way. I'm on day 3. I haven't eaten in days. I have no energy. I'm emotional. He's like, go freaking PR that lift. And it was a lifting one, which is even more so like you need strength to lift. And goddamn, Dawn, if I didn't go in there and PR, and I think it was a clean and jerk, it was like, a pretty intensive one. I was like, holy shit, did I just, do that at 140 pounds after not eating for 3 days? It was like mind blowing. Like, again, making you realize how little we tap into our full potential. And then when you actually push yourself to achieve full potential, how freaking great it feels. And it makes you realize how we cut ourselves short. Just like we started this, we cut ourselves short before the miracle and fully experiencing that.
Yeah. What a great way to transition that into that. That's perfect. We couldn't have even planned that. That's so perfect.
I was like, oh, wait a minute, that just came full circle.
Yes, full circle. But that is the truth. We never usually, well, I don't know that we'll ever tap into our full potential. Anybody.
True.
I think because it's just endless and so much. So anybody listening, you got so much in you. If you're already killing it out there, or if you're not, you've got so much greatness in you to go for it. Do the next thing. What else is possible? And you're enough to get your butt out there and do it.
Ah, I love that. All right, good. So now, where can our listeners find you? When is your next speaking? When is the book coming out? Where can they find you?
You can find me at Dawn, You're Enough, Dawn Thompson on Facebook. You can find me at the You're Enough movement on Instagram, You're Enough on TikTok, and you'reenough.com is where you can find. And it's YOURE. This lady made this for me out of a book. Isn't that crazy? It's a book.
I think that's amazing. And I love how you spelled out because so many people get your, and your wrong. It drives me crazy. It's like one of my biggest pet peeves in life are people who misspell your. Sorry.
Yeah.
So
you're enough.
Yeah.
You'reenough.com, or you can go to dawnthompson.com and come find me. Check me out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you got some speaking gigs you're doing.
I've got I do have some speaking gigs come up. They're private. I've got some private ones.
Nice.
As I get ready to go out, that's one thing I love to travel, but not like I was, because of it is the senior year. So I had said I might want to do 4 a year.
Yep.
Yep. So we'll see. I've got more. I've already had more on the books for that than this year, but you know what, if I'm still able to do them, and we'll just kind of see what transpires from there. The book, about to set down, I threw away everything that I'd had from before because everything has changed so much.
Yeah.
That I just threw everything out. So I'm starting from scratch.
Wow.
Starting fresh.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good for you. That's not hard for you. That would be so hard for me to have put so much into something and be like, I'm starting over.
What was easy for me, everything has been super easy for me because I threw away so much.
Yeah.
And that stuff, because I was like, no, I love it. I love this, as I was saying earlier. And once you ever start getting rid of things that are hard to get rid of, it all becomes easy, because at the end of the day, it's just stuff.
Yep. God, I love that. I'm on that journey. Every weekend I'll spend like 6 to 8 hours, just like I've been going through my closets. I went through my gym. I've been just like picking a spot and like, okay, we're going through this whole area. And it's the first time I've done it in, I can't even remember how long. And it's been so cathartic for me. I've been on a similar path as you. It's amazing.
I love it. It feels so good. It does.
Yeah. And what are you selling? What is the merch you're selling on TikTok?
So I have a couple of, I've had shirts. I have You're Enough shirts, and then we're about to switch into some sweatpants that are going to be super cool. I have journals. I have 3 different journals. We have cups, all different. We have coffee cups. We have, as a matter of fact, the coffee cup I'm selling was what was just in Emily Frisella's swag bag. And then I have some metal, you know how that they keep stuff insulated. We have cups of that nature. What else do I have? Jewelry. But the thing that I launched this last year, I launched it out in Vegas at the IBS hair show. I spoke at that event, and it is a You're Enough hair cutting cape. I have a hair cutting and a coloring cape. And it says, because I've owned a salon for 30 years, so I was trying to mesh the two together at some point. That's not my total platform, but I have done it for a long time, so why not? So I prayed about it for a long time, and I never could get it. And finally, the idea came to me, and it was You're Enough backwards. But when you turn their client into the mirror, it says You're Enough, so the client can read it.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, so I launched those in like I said, in Vegas, and really need to work that more. And that's a little bit of the TikTok, but that puts me just to hairdressers, hairstylists. So that's the other merch, you know, different t-shirts and different things. And I plan to do it. This is my plan if it all goes. Whoops, so sorry. So sorry.
You're fine.
Sorry, my dog is right at the end here. So sorry. My daughter is coming home from school, and so they wanted to greet her. So anyway, sorry about that. So putting in merch, I love to do extra stuff for people. So I'll be throwing in as I'm going live. I'm like, oh, okay, so you get a car and you get a car, and
perfect.
You get a free keychain, and you get, you know, so I'm gonna make it fun. That's my plan.
I love it.
Sorry about the dog.
Yeah, I didn't even hear it. You're totally fine.
Oh, she's doing her yoga.
Look at that. I love that.
Yeah.
She looks very peaceful.
Yeah, she's great. She was protecting her mama when the doorbell rang.
Love that. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. You've inspired me. I'm
you.
like, I need to make Going Rogue a movement. Like, that's what I'm missing. It's a movement. It's not just like a slogan. Let's make it a movement. I love that.
There you go.
Thank you for giving that to me. Let's do it.
You bet. Let's do it. We'll encourage each other.
Awesome. All right. I will be holding you accountable on those things. You tell me how the grapefruit fast is going. I'm super excited to hear about that as well.
Thank you so much.
Awesome.
I love you. I love your listeners. Thank you for allowing me the space today to share the story with you.
Love you. Thank you for coming on the show. You've been amazing. I'm so glad we finally got to talk.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye.